How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm joined for the first time by my friend Ryan. Thanks for being on the show with me, man. Good to
Yeah,
have you. We
thanks
thought
for
we'd
having me.
do a little more obscure topic than just best albums, best songs, worst songs. We thought it'd be interesting to take a look at who, in our respective opinion, we're each going to give five, is the most underrated, or are rather the most underrated lyricists, solo artists, songwriters, band, doesn't really matter. Just somebody who writes the lyrics, a lyricist in a band that we don't think gets all the attention that they maybe deserve. So, Ryan, you're the guest. I usually let the guest start. Do you want to go ahead with your number
Yeah,
five?
yeah, for sure. So this first one, I'm sure, is a very popular songwriter, but I don't think he gets the artistic credit that he deserves. So the first one I would say is Matt Healy of the 1975, and because I think, like, unfortunately for that group, they get kind of written off as like a boy band with electric guitars in some capacity. But when you actually start digging into their stuff, there's that pop music, but there's some real depth into the songwriting. Like, for example, this is the one lyric I can't believe how clever it is. I'm the Greek economy of cashing intellectual checks instead of selling sex, trying to progress. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I totally Let me pull that up. Let me redo that real quick. Yeah, so it's I'm the Greek economy of cashing intellectual checks, and I'm trying to progress instead of selling sex. And that really hits the nail on the head where I'm like, they're very aware of this whole like pop star, like, oh, he's a really attractive, cute guy, and he has all this like um, sexual appeal to it, but there's a lot of depth in it. And the other thing I think is really tongue in cheek that I really love with this is their first major like hit song is called Sex. And so it's distant. Like, I love the cleverness of like distancing yourself from those early songs. Like, hey, we actually have some depth here. It's not just fun songs about sex, but and then for the Greek economy of cashing intellectual checks, I would never think to put a literal economy reference into a figurative one, but I am very impressed with how he managed to put that together. Is really impressive to me. And this is off of "Loving Someone" is the name of the song.
Those poor
Uh,
Greeks. They've been the butt of so many jokes.
I know.
But
Well, I
how
think
lazy
things are
they
working out.
are, how bad their economy is. The 1975 is a band that I have completely come around. I've 180'd on my opinion of them based on the
Oh,
strength of
good.
that I think it's called A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships or something like
Mm-hmm.
that from a couple years ago.
That's an abstract one.
Oh, what a great record, man! There's nothing not to like about it. It's fantastic. Those guys, I was guilty of writing them off. I think it was you probably who first showed them to me, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I've totally come around. Those guys are great. What was the guy's name? I don't know any of the band members.
Matt Healy is
Okay,
their singer and lyricist.
does he write most of
Uh,
them?
to my knowledge, yes, but then again, I'm not part of the band, so I cannot confirm nor deny these allegations.
All right. So my number five pick is a band I've been listening to quite a bit lately. I think eventually Mike and I are going to do a best to worst on these guys on their studio albums. But that's Black Sabbath. The original Black Sabbath bassist is a guy named Geezer Butler. He was part of that original Ozzy Osbourne on lead vocals. Ozzy didn't write any of the songs. He can't be trusted to speak clearly, let alone write
What did he
lyrics.
do then?
Yeah, right. Well,
He's
he
the
sang.
singer. It's like that's half of singing is
And
singing something.
and he bit the heads off bats and snorted a line of ants and all that other crazy shit. So anyway, you got that classic Sabbath lineup of Tony Iommi on guitar, Bill Ward on drums, Geezer Butler on bass, and Ozzy on lead vocals. I think few would argue that that's the classic Sabbath lineup, right? People don't realize not only did Ozzy not write any of the lyrics really, but Geezer wrote pretty much all of their classic lyrics, man. War Pigs, Supernaut, Hand of Doom, Paranoid, Iron Man. I mean, he all of those songs are Geezer Butler tracks that he wrote. Ozzy sang much better than Geezer sang,
Yeah.
obviously, or could sing. But I think he was really, really good because they're a dime a dozen now, those kind of satanic black metal type lyrics and all that stuff. But like that was brand new back then. He was the first one to do that. I think he did it really well. His time in the band, Geezer Butler's, overlapped with Ronnie James Dio, who replaced Ozzy on vocals for a few albums there, and that's like everybody's second favorite Black Sabbath lineup. I don't know how many of the ones because Dio was a lyricist, he could write. I don't know how many Geezer wrote in that period. I know he wrote Computer God and probably a
Mm-hmm.
couple others that I'm not remembering. But he went on after Black Sabbath to play with GZR and then Heaven and Hell and a few other appearances here and there. But he could write a song. He was a really good songwriter for a bass player, which actually is kind of rare that
Yeah.
he's a bass player, does not sing, but does write the lyrics. And that's pretty rare. So that's my
I
number
say,
5.
it takes a lot of nerve to write the lyrics to Iron Man and not just laugh at yourself putting those lyrics to song.
I'm not saying they're deep. I'm saying he's good at writing lyrics.
No, like it totally matches the tone of the song. Yeah, he's totally a great lyricist for him. I'm just saying, like, it takes a lot of belief in what you're writing to want to put that out and attach your name to a song like that. You have to really believe it through the cheese. Yeah. So continuing on. So my second one is John Mayer. Again, a lot of my list is artists that I think people are aware of, but I don't think get all the credit they deserve. So I've got 2 examples for Mr. Mayer's songwriting. So the first one is from Edge of Desire. And the whole gist of the song is basically, I'm assuming it's a breakup, but then wanting to get back with that person, even though it's the total wrong thing and you should not do it. And like, you really encapsulate a lot of that, like, passion and conflicted feelings in the lyrics. So for an example, the first verse starts with young and full of running. Tell me, where has that taken me? Just a great figure 8 or a tiny infinity. It's like, what a clever little phrase there. A great figure 8 or tiny infinity. I think that just goes, again, my way of understanding it was like, this relationship means so little that it's just a little figure 8, or it's everything and it's infinity. And then there's that irony too of great figure 8, despite that being a much smaller concept than an infinity, is like, I don't know. I love the paradox of that. I think that's such a good way of articulating that emotion of like wanting something so bad, even though it's not good, or it may not even have all the value that you have put into it yourself. I was like, oh, that is such a great line. And then another one that impressed me. This is in the second verse. Again, this is like that kind of like longing for somebody to tell you what the song is about. But it's, maybe this mattress will spin on its axis and find me on yours. I was like, I would never think to rhyme mattress with axis is a hell of a rhyme that I would not put together. And then just like the chorus, again, it's not very subtle at all, but I think it speaks to the emotion really well of, don't say a word, just come over and lie here with me. And then skipping a line, I want you so bad, I'll go back on the things that I believe. And I think that just really encapsulates that feeling of like, in your head, better than whatever bullshit you're doing, but that's not enough to convince your heart not to act on it. And I think that's just such a great way of like articulating that kind of passion in some lyrics. So I know you listen to John Mayer. Have you heard that song before?
Yeah, no. And I seriously considered putting him on here, but I was like, man, there's a pretty good chance Ryan's going to put him on his list. I totally agree. Definitely, I think an underrated lyricist. He's very approachable artistically. So I think a lot of people don't pay attention to just what a good artist he actually is. And you didn't mention one of my favorite songs of his is Slow Dancing in a Burning Room.
Oh, that is a hell of a metaphor.
What a great metaphor. Beautiful. And you're talking about condensing feeling down to its essence. That's a fantastic song.
And then I know this has nothing to do with lyrics, but if we can just talk about the guitar solo in that song and being the perfect way to encapsulate that feeling beyond the lyrics, just gives me goosebumps every time.
Yeah, it's a fantastic song. So we'll stick with Kings of 2000s pop for my next pick. I promise you won't recognize his actual name. My number 4 pick is Vladimir Ondrasik III, known much more popularly as Five for Fighting. Yeah, I didn't know that was his real name before I went to look him up. So again, like John Mayer, very approachable musically, a charts artist, a singles artist, a pop artist, whatever you want to call him. A lot of those, I think, do an injustice to actually paying attention to the song craft in a lot of these guys. So 2004's The Battle for Everything was his big like gold. It might have gone platinum, I don't know, but it definitely was a big seller. Had 100 Years on it. Had If God Made You. I think that was a really good song. New York City Weather Report, I thought was a cool song. A lot of them on there are they're such well-crafted songs. And the one I wanted to, and the opening 4 tracks are all like his best 4 songs on that one record. But anyway, the rest of the album is still pretty good. So the one little bit I wanted to read, just because I thought it was it's a bridge on a song called Devil in the Wishing Well. And so leading up to this, have you heard that one? Do you know that one?
I don't.
So it's on that same record. It's one of the deeper cuts. It's some interesting imagery about deals with the devil and how you give bit of yourself to succeed at something. And at least that's how I read it. So
Mhm.
the little bridge portion, he starts talking really fast and singing really fast. And it says, I took a guess and cut a portion out of my heart. He said, that's nowhere close enough, but it's a damn good start. I wrote the secret that I buried on the wishing well wall. He said, I've seen one. It follows that I've seen them all. We spoke of human destination in a perfect world, derived the nature of the universe and found it unfulfilled. As I took him in my arms, he screamed, I'm not insane. I'm just looking for someone to understand my pain. And
Holy shit, that's a lot.
I was like, that's a mouthful to put to
I was like,
music.
how
Like a,
now I just gotta want to hear the song now to hear how that's actually done because that is a lot to say. And like, so I was kind of looking for like an internal rhyme scheme. Like, there's none. This is just espousing philosophy in the middle of a song. Which again, more
yeah,
power to you for being able to pull that off. I'm just so curious. Like, how is this actually implemented? Because that seems really hard to sing.
yeah. And I love that line specifically. What a deep sort of attempt to encapsulate finding success or finding happiness,
Which line in
but it's not
particular?
what you thought it would be. It's a um, we derived the nature of the universe but found it unfulfilled. Like they found the purpose,
Mm.
they found the goal, but they couldn't get it any. We couldn't get it. So I thought that was he's an underrated songwriter. I don't know what happened to him, man. He hadn't put out a record in like 15 years, 12 years or something. I guess he's not around anymore, but he had a great run in the late 90s, early 2000s, several hits, and I think he deserves a little more credit as a songwriter.
Oh, that 100 years. That theme of that song has been done a lot now. And I don't know if that's the first one to think of the idea of putting a song in verses based on the amount of years lived. But somewhere there's that Lucas Graham song back when we were in college that was 7 years. That was almost the same exact concept.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I kind of wonder if he's thinking he inspired this or not. I'm kind of curious about that.
He's definitely, I think, underrated, man. His style again is like so sort of non-revolutionary that a lot of people wouldn't care enough to listen to a whole record of his, but
Yeah,
it's great. The quality's there.
I may have to check it out. Yeah, the other one I had for John Mayer. This is In Your Atmosphere. It's a fairly deep cut of his. And so the whole gist of the song for In Your Atmosphere is like it seems like you're still harboring feelings towards like an ex or not even necessarily an ex, but just somebody who's not in your life anymore that used to be very much involved in your life. And then the whole metaphor of In Your Atmosphere I really love because I kind of have to think of it as like a spaceship. And I know it sounds really cheesy to begin with. I'm going to explain that. So um, the chorus is I'm going to steer clear or burn up in your atmosphere. And then I had to think about what that actually meant. I'm like, so what is the different like so being in your atmosphere like oh because if you come so fast into something that it literally starts to burn. And then I think it continues on to the second part of the chorus I die if I saw you, I die if I didn't see you there. Just that again that like really conflicting emotion of like I know in my life it's better that I just leave this to die, but I can't help but be so like you can't help but be so curious what's going on with that person because there's still that little bit of love in there. Hence like the outro where it's wherever I go, whatever I do, I wonder where I am in my relationship to you.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's a very good way of like relating a feeling that we've all felt before of this person has spent that time in my life that I was going to give them. There's nothing more to give, but I can't help but wonder how they're doing, even if not to be part of their life. I'd burn up if I were to try to get involved, but
Yeah.
still can't help but wonder. So I'm just going to orbit like some metaphorical satellite around another person's metaphorical planet.
Can't help but compare sometimes as well, which is not healthy,
Mhm.
but that's what I read into that as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Like again, it's more than just a relationship because again, when he says like when I'm in my relationship to you, I think applies outside of that because it goes wherever you go, wherever you are. I watch that pretty life play out in pictures from afar, and again, you don't have to be dating somebody. It could be somebody you used to be a friend with, and then you just see them on social media, and then it brings up all these old memories and feelings that you didn't think were there, and then you want it. And then again, you just get stuck in orbiting the atmosphere, knowing you're better off not
Yeah.
actually entering it. I was like, what a great again. He has a great metaphors like between this slow dancing in a burning room, stop this train. There's another song about getting older, like 100 years, but he has really, really well metaphors.
Did you do John Mayer twice?
Well, I figured like for some of these, I had two songs for the person because I thought they were like really, really good examples of it.
Do you, well, so was it, so did you, I did, lyricists like 5 people. You did 5 songs?
Oh no, I have five different people. I just
Oh,
have more than
okay.
one song per person
I
for
was like,
some
so
people.
John Mayer's your number 4 and your number 3?
He is my entire number five. There is nothing beyond John Mayer. No.
Right. What was your, what was your, the next one you did? Did you
Yeah.
do, because
So
I had 2. So I think, oh no, you went first, didn't you?
yeah.
I'm
Yep.
losing track of where we are. I did Geezer Butler. You did John Mayer.
Yep. It started
Okay.
with the 1975.
That's right. Okay. My bad. We'll cut that out. So my number 3 is a guy named Billy Woods, rapper, East Coast rapper. I was somewhat unfamiliar with his work until the last couple years. Namely, he collaborates with people a lot. It's like him and somebody, and then they do a record. So he
Mhm.
did an album in 2018, actually it was 2019, I think. I should have written it down, called Hiding Places with Elucid, another established rapper. And Billy Woods writes most all of his own lyrics. You know, it's not like they collaborate on the lyrics. One guy handles mainly production.
Yeah.
He handles mainly performances, from what I understand. Oh, he had another great album with More Mother that he did just last year, which is fantastic. But Hiding Places, God, what a record. And the more I listen to his stuff, the more I realize he's one of the few people that can do thoughtful, intelligent, lyrical hip hop consistently. And I don't mean that nobody else can do that, but what I mean is like everybody else, like you talk about Kendrick's quality and lyricism, which is undoubtedly there,
Yeah.
but the dude takes like breaks of years and years at a time. I mean, he hasn't put anything out in like 5 years, right? So that quality takes time to distill. Nas, same thing, big gaps between projects. Billy Woods, he's here and he's there and he's there and he's there. He can just like, it doesn't repeat much, but the qualities, I don't want to read, you know how long hip hop verses are. I don't want to read the whole thing. Like definitely check out Hiding Places for anybody that hasn't heard it, man. That album is fantastic. The live instrumentation, the jazzy sort of live real instrument hip hop project with some great thoughtful lyrical themes. He's super underrated, man. I love everything that he's done. He keeps coming out with new projects. You never have to wait more than like 6 months for Billy Woods to pop up somewhere and do an album with somebody. So he's super underrated, man. I love the gravity and the intelligence he can bring to a hip hop verse.
Now you've got me curious for an example. One of these lyrics.
I should have wrote it down. The problem is they're all he's real lays it on over the course of a song. And calls back to things he said earlier and brings new. It's super intelligent the way he writes a song.
Okay, on that train of thought, that's exactly what I'm going to mention. This next lyricist and this next song for songs that go back to the beginning of it. So the lyricist is Scott Hutchinson of Frightened Rabbit, and the song is called My Backwards Walk. And again, I realize I have all these like relationship songs as examples of these lyrics now, but anywho, so the whole idea of backwards walk is like it's surely like in the middle of a breakup, finally going out the door, and that's the end of the relationship. And so the beginning of it starts with I'm working on my backwards walk, and then there's a few little lyrics in there that I really like the way they're said. For example, I wish we'd never met and then met today. Because there's that weird part of you that's always changing where like if you start this relationship as the person you are when you start it comes out as somebody different while you're in it, and you realize if you were that person that you currently are when it started, you may not be in the situation you are now. And I think that's a really like you just think of how much you change yourself, and I've kind of come to relate to. I wish we never met and then met today. Now that I've become a different person, I think it's a really great way of articulating that.
I've not heard of
so. Well, unfortunately, they broke up after Scott committed suicide. So there's not going to be I don't think there'll be a new one, unfortunately. But yeah, I was going to say on that cheery note. So continuing with the song, like I really love it. The whole song is this narrative about getting over somebody in the end of this relationship. And so, each I guess stanza is the word I'm looking for here. So it starts with I'm working on my faults and cracks. In the next stanza, working on drawing a straight line. Then I'm working on erasing you. Again, we're going back to these metaphors. I think are really well painting this perfect picture of this scene, and then just trying to draw this straight line through it, and then eventually get rid of it. But anyway, I'm coming where it goes like full circle is it comes back towards the very end of the song of I've been working on my backwards walk. There's nowhere else for me to go except back to you just one last time. Say yes before I change your mind. And I love that turnaround where the whole thing starts of, okay, this is over. There's nothing left here. But then using that same phrase, then it goes to there's nowhere else for me to go, like finding this resolution in it. I think is just really good narrative songwriting. And there's this one lyric that's really fun for the outro. And I can't tell if it's really endearing or kind of mean, but it's you're the shit and I'm knee deep in it. Which I'm like, it's endearing that you're so involved with this person, but
that's funny.
Being referred to as shit. I don't know if that's the most endearing thing, but
that tells the whole story of the relationship right there.
Yeah, that's a great way of summing it. I guess that's the whole point of that outro.
Yeah.
This
funny.
may not be the best, but I'm knee deep in it and I want it. I didn't think about that till now, but
that's great.
You're the shit and I'm knee deep in it.
That's funny. They don't have to be long to be good lyrics.
No, it's like 3 minutes long, this song. And again, what I really love about it is there's not really a chorus. It's just a bunch of stanzas. And then it's the same chord progression, the entire song. All it changes is the lyrics. And then at the end of it, there's this weird drum pattern that goes with the you're the shit and I'm knee deep in it. But it's really mostly a narrative song. There's not much going on musically, but I think that's what makes it that's what makes it work so well.
Nice. I'll have to check that one out. I don't know that song or that band really at all. How many records do they have? You said they broke up.
Oh, I don't know.
Have they been around a while or just kind of a new band?
I wouldn't say they're new. And again, I couldn't answer the question honestly. I know it's at least since the early 2010s that they were a group.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, they've been around for a while. I'm sure they have at least 3 albums.
Nice. Well, my number 2 would have been probably predictable if people know what I've been impressed with lately, and that's Chris Stapleton is my number 2 pick. Dude, I mean, we can talk about how it's not groundbreaking. Lots of people have been and done what he's done before, but arguably nobody's done it better. The dude can pen a song and it's so good. And he's got a million hit songs, right? Tennessee Whiskey, Broken Halo, Starting Over, a Millionaire. What are you listening to? Maggie, the song about the dog makes you cry every time.
Oh my God,
that's a sad-ass song. Starting Over, probably said that one, can't remember. But anyway, he's 4 albums deep and he hasn't written a bad song on any of them. It's pretty damn impressive. But rather than list out his clever lyrics and his great portions of songs to illustrate what a great writer he is, I thought I would list the people who he's written songs for, who then they have had hits, right? Keep in mind, he's only been doing this like max 8 years, 9 years.
He's gotten around.
Oh my God. So he has written songs that have become hits for Adele, Thomas Rhett, Kenny Chesney, Sheryl Crow, George Strait, Josh Turner, Darius Rucker, Blake Shelton, Tim McGraw, Little Big Town, Luke Bryan, Brad Paisley, Miranda Lambert, Bucky Covington, Books and Dunn, Travis Tritt, Kelly Pickler, and Montgomery Gentry, among others.
Wow.
The dude can write. All he does
Dude, you want to talk about...
Oh, man, it's amazing.
You want to talk about him writing the song I never knew I wanted to hear until I heard it. It was him, Ed Sheeran, and Bruno Mars doing a rock song. Blow was the name of it. I would have never believed that they would get together and make such a badass rock song. But now that I've heard that, I'm like, well, I want the whole album now, not just this single. But again, you talk about a guy that's able to work with a lot of people. I would never in a million years put him and Ed Sheeran and Bruno Mars in the same room and expect a rock song to come out of it.
He did a song with Justin Timberlake called "Give Me Something," and that's a really great song too. The dude can just not stop writing catchy ass good songs, and it's not like they're super simple. You listen to a lot of his lyrics, and they're not like Dylan tier clever, but they're extremely like good and just not simple. They're not just like I want to drive my tractor or whatever. It's like actually good cohesive song ideas put to lyrics extremely well. Love that guy. Love everything
Man,
he's done. Doesn't have a miss.
So if you take it to bad lyrics, I think this is Florida Georgia Line. I heard this lyric. It was why don't you come over here and we'll get you a beer? I was like, okay, this is the epitome of we are not trying anymore.
That's a
Feeding into all
song.
the country stereotypes, rhyming beer and here. I'm like, come on. I get it. This is pop country. And I'm not knocking people who like it because, again, you just enjoy music for what it is. Like, I love Prince, but I don't enjoy it for the same reason I like Bon Iver, or, you know,
Yeah.
different structure, different folks. But come on, come over here and have a beer. It just feels like you're not trying anymore.
Country, pop country. Again, I can get on board with some of it. I guess if you
Yeah.
stretch the definition, you could call some of Stapleton's stuff pop
Oh,
country.
I absolutely would.
But man, there's some shit in the pile.
Oh,
in
one of my
Nashville
favorite ones.
lately, man.
I hate that
Oh.
I'm not remembering the name of the song, but I kid you not, the lyric is girl, you make my speakers go boom boom.
It's like,
You know, I need to know what song that's from.
that's it. That's what you
Dude.
came to the studio with. Wow.
So the name of that song, yeah, it's Luke Bryan, and the name of the song is Boom Boom Song.
Tell me Stapleton didn't write that one.
I'd be surprised. And again,
That
I'm not
seems like a
knocking-
Brian original.
Yeah, I'm not doing this to knock Luke Bryan. Like, he's a great entertainer and writer. He makes like good sounding music, but
Mm.
come on, speakers go boom boom.
That's
Just
it.
feels like the effort isn't quite there.
That's like you walk in, the producer's sitting there, and he's like, "What you got for me?" And he reads that back, and the producer's like, "It's gonna be a long day." I don't even want my name on this project, but that's funny. All right, what you got?
Yeah, so here, kind of rounding out. So my fourth one, Bruce Springsteen. I know he's a huge name, but I don't think he gets all the credit he really deserves. So the first song I have in mind is Dancing in the Dark. And this is another really clever one where the whole song is about not being able to write a hit and being frustrated about it, only for that song to become a hit. I would think is a really like next level ironic writing. But for example, let me pull this up real quick. So the chorus is simple enough. You can't start a fire. You can't start a fire without a spark. This gun's for hire. Even if we're just dancing in the dark, I think communicates a lot of feeling of I've got absolutely nothing going on and I want this hit. I want some spark in my life to happen, but it's not happening. And again, I just love and that's also like very tongue in cheek, like the bridge. You sit around getting older. There's a joke here somewhere and it's on me. And I really, I can appreciate artists that doesn't get too pretentious with being a writer. I can appreciate that a lot. But
Yeah,
I think that's I just find it funny how that song became a hit, even though the whole song is about being upset that you're not writing a hit. And mind you, this was off Born in the USA too, like his biggest album. And he had been touring Europe by that time. He was a success. And then he's still upset that he's not writing hits.
Fulfilled his own prophecy there, writing a song that couldn't become a hit. It becomes a hit. He's like, God, it's like I don't get it.
Personally, like, and the thing with Springsteen, it's great. It's just as a writer, like, if you listen to the opening part of that song, the piano part, that is the chorus. That melody is cycled over again. And that's not technically a lyrics thing, but I think it's really efficient songwriting to be able to recycle melodies in different places is a really telling sign of a good writer. And so my other Springsteen song, and this one is really uncomfortable to listen to because of the lyrics, but I think it's still written really well all the same. It's I'm on Fire. And so the whole gist of this song is about having like sexual desire for somebody that it's wildly inappropriate for. I mean, the song starts with, "Hey little girl, is your daddy home? Did he go and leave you all alone? I got a bad desire. I'm on fire." Wildly uncomfortable to hear.
Oh boy.
"Hey little girl, is your daddy home?" I'm like, you know what? You got a lot of nerve to write that. But the part that I think is really clever, but also the most well-written dick joke I've ever heard in my life, is
I know where you're going.
is one of the verses. Sometimes it's like someone took a knife, maybe edgy and dull, and cut a 6-inch valley through the middle of my skull. I'm like, well, it's good to know that that's what's on your. And again, I can appreciate like how well constructed that is. That's what's it's a much more classy way of saying I've got. That's a much more classy way of saying I've got sex on my mind. What is on average 6 inches and is giving me a lot of bad impulses. Again, like I think the song is like wildly uncomfortable to listen to intentionally, but I think that's a really interesting way of articulating it. And then another one that cracks me up in here is at night I wake up with the sheets soaking wet and a freight train running through the middle of my head.
God, Bruce,
man,
calm down.
I know, man. And there's a level of like intimacy to his songwriting, but I don't think we need to know about your wet dreams. Is a level that I didn't think we'd ever listen to. But
I don't know
again,
that one has aged quite as well as his others.
Oh, this song has aged absolutely horribly, but I think that is the most well articulated dick reference I have ever heard in a song.
Yeah,
so I think that merits a comment, if not just to point out that it's just a total joke. Well, actually, I would say it's a total joke, but it merits a mention because it is the most well-crafted dick joke I've ever heard in a song.
Like, if the measure of great lyrics is its effectiveness at communicating something.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely have communicated it effectively, even though I didn't like what it was communicating.
Yeah.
Speaking of Springsteen, man, he's been on a roll lately. Last couple of years, he's put out some of the best shit of his career, in my opinion. Western Stars 2018, and then Letter to You last year.
Dude, he's even doing a podcast with Obama now.
Oh, really? That's weird. Those two worlds don't usually collide in my mind, but that's funny. No, he's
collided.
He's definitely a great songwriter, even when he's talking about that stuff.
Even when he's talking about his penis.
So my number one is also a classic rock figure, well beloved, widely recognized for his greatness as a drummer, Neil Peart. Mm-hmm. I think it's Peart. I'm pretty sure. Everybody says that wrong, including me often. Anyway, everybody knows greatest drummer in rock and roll. Definitely up there if you're going to talk about somebody else, right? But a lot of people don't bring up as frequently his greatness as a lyricist. To my knowledge, all but like a few Rush songs over their whole 40-year studio career were penned by Neil Peart. And starting out with the stuff on their earlier albums, like the long songs on Caress of Steel and Hemispheres, all of which I've got behind me here. I've got like half of Rush's whole discography. I love him so much. But like whatever he was reading, man, who writes rock and roll lyrics about like Fountainhead by Ayn Rand and starts talking about like the class divisions in capitalist society on a rock record? And he does it in a way, like Bytor and the Snow Dog and the Fountain of Lamneth. That's basically just talking about like Lord of the Rings, man. I mean,
Led Zeppelin did that too.
Yeah, that's what he was reading lately. So that's what he wrote about. But he always does it in such a way that's like super clever, and it doesn't feel like he's talking down to anybody ever. It's like he's just sharing honestly about what he's into lately, what he's been reading that's connected with him lately. And that's what I love about it, because it's so easy to write pretentious lyrics that sound pretentious. It's hard to write lyrics that are pretentious, but they don't sound pretentious, and I don't experience them that way. I didn't write any of them down because I know all these songs by heart, but the best single lyric in like a rock song is like he's talking about the disenchantment that a lot of bands of that era had with the music industry as their careers progressed. And he's talking about, one would like to believe, this is the lyric, one would like to believe in the freedom of music, but glittering prizes and endless compromises shatter any illusions of integrity. And I'm just like, damn. And of course, Geddy, the singer, delivers that like in such a succinct way that you don't realize how wordy it is. It takes longer to say than to sing by a mile. I mean, he's fantastic, man. I love him.
I didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah, it's like
more.
So
this list also merits another list of vocalists who can deliver complicated lyrics. It merits being its own list now. I know he's number one for having to get through that mouthful while still being in song is skill most of us will never be able to do.
No, I wish. And I love the dynamic in that band too. Just on a related note, it's like it was Alex Lifeson, Neil Peart, and Geddy Lee, those same three guys for 35 years, and they don't hate each other. They never were like trashing each other in the press. I mean, they had their disagreements, but they were always like professional, and it seems like they're still friends, man, even though Neil died, sadly. But that's what I love, that dynamic, man. That's what everybody who joins a band hopes it's going to be like. It never is.
Very true.
So
Yeah.
what's your number one, man?
My number one is the Airborne Toxic event. I think that is the strongest part of this band, and
Good pick.
I absolutely adore them. So it kind of makes sense, like their lyricism is so strong, because their lyricist Mikel Julia, he's also the front man. He's also a writer, so the way a lot of their songs are written is very narrative, and I could see how he's a writer outside of music. And he released a book, I think it might have been a year ago now, I think it was 2020, his own autobiography. And he's a wildly interesting guy. Like, he was raised in a cult as a kid, and then moved around a lot. And the book is called Hollywood Park, and that's also the name of the album that came out last year. But and then the way these songs are written, like, he's clearly been through a lot. So I have 3 examples of I think are just exceptional lines. So this first one is called The Graveyard Near the House, and it's as morbid as it is like really endearing. So it starts with, the other day when we were walking by the graveyard near the house, you asked me if I thought we would ever die. And if life and love both fade so predictably, we've made ourselves a kind of predictable lie. And then it goes on later in that same verse of, we looked so silly there, all decomposed, half turned to dust and tattered clothes, although we probably look just as silly now. And I think what he's getting at is like how ridiculous it is to love somebody. This is where we get like really high concept philosophical with these last couple ones. But anywho, like, just the notion of how silly it is to have such strong feelings in love, knowing that it won't last forever, and treating it as if you will. It's this kind of thing that you have to carry into a relationship, but looking at it on an objective level, you treat this thing as if it lasts forever, but your own life has determined it doesn't. And so, and then the chorus of it is, bye to all this dogged innocence. I can't pretend that I can tell you what is going to happen next or how to be, but you have no idea about me. And I could appreciate like the realness of the song of like, there's this relationship there, but there's all this anxiety of, I don't know where it's going to be tomorrow. I know that I love you now, but, and then again, like, bye to all this dogged innocence, like talking about, we love as if we will never die, but it's coming to all of us. And then, and so then towards the end of it, like, this is, or like kind of wraps itself up. So we've got a moment's past. We hate hear how it sounds. And it seems a little less profound. Like we're all going the same way down. Yeah, we're all going the same way down. And then it ends with, I'll defy everyone and love you still. I will carry you with me up every hill. And if you die before I die, I'll carve your name out of the sky. I was like, what a great way of bringing it all together. Of, despite like the impermanence of love and life itself, we still indulge those things as powerfully as we can. And what a concept to write about in your love song, talking about that you're going to die, but you still love this person. Don't know how well that, yeah, that's such a wild concept to put together. So this next one, it's a little less sad. It's called Sometime Around Midnight. This was their first big single, and I think it's still probably their biggest song, but it's basically about running into an ex at a bar, which I know this was a true story for him, but I just love the kind of imagery he uses here. Like, that she's watching, she's laughing, she's turning, she's holding her tonic like a crux. The room's suddenly spinning. She walks up to ask how you are. You can smell her perfume. You can see her lying naked in your arms. I was like, I just love the imagery of the tonic like a crux. Like, it's this social obligation to talk to somebody, but it's very uncomfortable, and kind of holding this as like some kind of barrier.
Yeah.
I think is, again, it's obviously it's like a literal thing you can do, but I think describing that the way it is what really contributes to this song as a whole. And then again, it's just worth going through this whole song and listening as a narrative, how it evolves. And towards the end of it, it goes, then she leaves with someone you don't know. She makes sure you saw her. She looks like that, bolts. She walks out the door, your blood boiling, your stomach in ropes. And your friends say, what is it? You look like you've seen a ghost. And That isn't the most uncomfortable, real feeling of bumping into somebody you weren't ready to bump into, and then just, oh man, he's just
Yeah, we've all
such a
been
great
there.
rider.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can relate to that, the whole stomach and ropes, and you just feel pale, and oh man,
Isn't it
it's
funny the
such a
way,
great song.
why does it affect us that way? There's no consequences. Like,
Sure.
what is it? It's so strange. It's I don't know. That's what we could, you and I, we could talk about that kind of shit for hours, but we're getting away from the purpose of the episode.
Right. No, so I'm on my last one, and so I'd be remiss. Like, this would have to be my number one example, because I have it tattooed on my arm. It'd feel a little wrong not to include that in my list if I cared enough to actually get it tattooed on myself.
Yeah.
But so this lyric is from All I Ever Wanted, and they write a lot of sad music now I think about it. It's another kind of sad relationship song of basically, I could be all the things that you want me to be in this relationship, but it wouldn't be true, and it's just going to fall apart sooner than later because of this, is the gist of the song, the way I get it. But the lyric I have on my arm is, it must be some kind of rebellion to arm these fears like soldiers and slay them. And I think it's a really articulate way of saying that fear only has as much power as you grant it, which is already kind of a wordy thing to say, but I think it's just a very, very good way of like explaining that you give this fear so much power to arm it like a soldier and then still overcome it and slay it. I think is I think that's just a beautiful way of articulating that notion.
Absolutely. And good thing you mentioned that. Otherwise, somebody might have called you out on it if they saw a lyric on your arm and you didn't choose it.
I know. So this is actually my first tattoo that I got. Now I think about it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you a funny story about that. This is just kind of an off tangent, but I think it's kind of funny. So my dad first saw it, he was asking like what it was from. I was like, oh, it's from one of my favorite songs. He's like, okay, well, can you play it? And so I put the song on in the car, and then he's very quiet listening to the whole thing, waiting for that lyric that I have on my arm. He's waiting to hear it, how it's used. And then the song stops, and there's this moment of silence as I'm waiting for him to say something. And the first thing he says is, I hate that tattoo, and I hate it even more now that I've listened to this. It's like, oh man, I didn't do this seeking your approval, but that's very reassuring all the same.
That's hilarious, man. That's such a that's really funny. I didn't know that. Yeah, well, he's honest, I guess, if nothing else. Yeah. That's hilarious.
It's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, well, it's there now. Yeah, that's funny. Well, I think you did your 5, didn't you?
Yep, that was my 5. I think you got one more.
Well, man, it was great to have you, Ryan. We'll have to do some more of these in the future. Talk about some. I know. When I was thinking about having you on here, I was like, what would be interesting to you to talk about? And you were like, man, everybody does these boilerplate top 5, top 10, worst, best, or whatever. Let's do like really specific. Let's hone in on something really specific. And I'm absolutely game to do that, man. At some point, we'll have to pick like a super little hyper.
I'm telling you, we could do one on best vocal deliveries of complicated lyrics.
There you go.
That is a list I don't think anyone has done yet. If you're looking for something unique, that's a list I would be very interested.
It's going to be hard to fit that in like a YouTube title.
That just goes to the point of the video, though, being able to articulate something that's really weird to read.
Fair point.
It's its own skill. I think that making the title as wordy as possible it fits the tone of such an absurd video, but it's one I don't think anybody else has done yet.
There you go. Stay tuned for top 5 best vocal deliveries of complicated lyrics.
See if you can find that anywhere else.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for watching, Ryan. Good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me.